It's been a tough week for first responders since I dropped the last episode. We have lost several across the country, including Assistant Fire Chief Jason McClone from the East Branch, New York Fire Department, who died July 18th, 2025, after being electrocuted at the scene of a crash. Parole agent Joshua Byrd was shot and killed on July 17th, 2025 in the Division of Adult Parole Operations in Oakland, California. Agent Byrd was a United States Navy veteran and had served with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation for 11 years. He is survived by his wife and 3 children. Sergeant Dale Pereira passed away from complications of a heart attack after helping a disabled motorist move their vehicle out of a busy roadway. Sergeant Pereira had served with the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office in Florida for 21 years. He previously served with the Escambia Sheriff's Department. He is survived by his wife, 4 children, and 10 grandchildren. On July 18th, Detective Joshua Kelly Eklund, Detective Victor Lemus, and Detective William Osborne were killed in a training accident at the Basileus Training Center in Los Angeles, California. Detective Kelly Eklund had served with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for 19 years and was assigned to the Special Enforcement Bureau. He is survived by his wife and 7 children. Detective Lemus had served with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for 22 years and was assigned to the Special Enforcement Bureau. He is survived by his wife, who is also a detective with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, his 3 daughters, his 3 sisters who also serve with the department, and 4 brothers. Detective Osborne had served with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for 33 years. He was assigned to the Special Enforcement Bureau. He is survived by his wife, who is also a detective with the County Sheriff's Department, 4 sons, and 2 daughters. Gentlemen, your sacrifice is appreciated. Rest in peace. We have the watch.
During this episode, the names of several doctors, attorneys, and other professionals were mentioned. This is not a recommendation or endorsement of any kind. Thank you. Welcome to the First Responders Podcast, the podcast for first responders, made by first responders. Now, for your host, Brian Miller, a retired first responder with over 25 years of experience.
So we're here with the next episode of the First Responders Podcast. I'm here with a buddy of mine, Harold Phillips. Harold, how are you, sir?
Doing good.
All right. Harold reached out to me, I guess about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I had posted on my personal Facebook page about setting up this podcast. And Harold reached out and wanted to tell his story. And I thought about it. And I told you guys in the first episode that my purpose with this podcast was to, number one, inform the public about our jobs, about the stuff we do on a daily basis, the stuff that the public sees and the stuff that the public doesn't see. And also to get some interest in these young people in becoming first responders. So Harold reached out, and I wasn't really sure whether this was a topic that I wanted to touch because it's the darker side of the job. And I got to thinking about my dad. And like I told you guys in the first episode, my dad was a firefighter for over 30 years. Well, what I didn't tell you is my dad died from cancer that he got from that job. The job that he loved ultimately killed him. And I put that in context, and it's part of the job, just as much as a firefighter putting out fire or a cop making an arrest. The physical toll that this job takes on us is part of the job. And there are certain health conditions, cardiovascular stuff, respiratory stuff that the state of Virginia has made presumptive. And I'm going to let Harold talk about that while he's telling his story, because that's all I know about it. I know that there's certain jobs that if you die from a cardiac issue, it's automatic. And so I'm going to let Harold tell you a little bit about himself, talk about his career, and then he's going to get into the nitty gritty of his health problems that were all caused by the job. Harold, it's good to see you, brother.
Good seeing you, brother.
He and I have known each other since the early 90s.
Yep.
We were both members of a rescue squad here locally. But he's going to talk about that too. But that's where Harold and I met originally. And then we bumped into each other here and there, But Harold, start off with your career. Tell me a little bit about it.
I'm born and raised here in Chesapeake. Graduated from Oscar Smith, class 86. Go Tigers. I'm essentially a second-generation firefighter. I had two uncles that retired from the fire department, one with Naval Base Norfolk as a captain, and the other with Chesapeake Fire Department as a captain. But when you look back at pictures of me growing up, I've always got either a fire hat on or playing with fire trucks, and everybody said all I want to do was be a fireman. And as I got older, back in the 70s, there was a TV series that was in syndication, and it's on every afternoon on Me TV, so they get that credit. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, called Emergency.
Squad 51.
Squad 51. It was two LA County firefighter paramedics, Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto. And as a young boy, that really helped influence me to become a firefighter paramedic.
I think that show is responsible for more firefighter medics than anything in history. That and Rescue 911, I think that helped us.
Yep. So in 1985, I joined the Chesapeake Fire Department as a volunteer, 18-year-old kid, and I didn't know then how much of an impact it would have on my life, and the good, the bad, and the not so bad, and the really bad, but I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. In 1988, I joined the Nesbitt Suffolk Rescue Squad, and that's where we met.
Yes, sir.
And for the next 20 years, I was in Suffolk, between Nesbitt Suffolk and the Venice Creek Rescue Squad up in the North End as a medic. And they were great times. Awesome times as a young medic.
We met some good people in Suffolk.
Oh, there was some awesome people. I was very fortunate to be around them. Going to give credit to one of my mentors, Mike Berg, who's with the Virginia Office of EMS. And Mike saw the potential in me. And even though I put a few gray hairs on his head, because I was a young, headstrong medic, Mike broke me down and he trained me. And I've been very fortunate between Chesapeake and Newport News and Suffolk that I was trained by what I consider some of the best in the area. In 1993, Chief David Barrett took a chance and hired me as an emergency medical specialist.
What is an emergency medical specialist?
We rode the medic all the time, the ambulance. And then when they did what they called cross training, which was the medics became firefighters and the firefighters became medics, I was in that first group that cross trained. So I would go up the ranks from emergency medical specialist to firefighter medic to senior firefighter paramedic. And then in 2013, I would transfer into the fire marshal's office. And that's where I would end up my career in 2016 when I left to become a building inspector for the city of Chesapeake.
I think I ran into you one day when you were doing that.
Yeah. And that combines all my loves. But also, during that time frame in 2008, I joined the Chesapeake Sheriff's Office as an auxiliary deputy sheriff. And over the next 15 years, I go through the rank structure from deputy to sergeant, first sergeant, lieutenant, and retire as a captain. And Bud Cartwright, who's the major of the auxiliary corps, and I sat down one time right after I retired, and we figured it up to over 10,000 volunteer hours in 15 years.
And you know, it gets me that you did that for free.
Yeah.
For free. I got paid to be in the jail, and there were days I didn't want to be there.
Well, we weren't in the jail. We were actually out in the field working security at most of these events that happened around the city. And they were great times. Interacted with people, use restraint, try to be nice to people. And for the most part, it paid off. Got to see a lot of kids and bring the positive side of law enforcement. Because let's face it, law enforcement has gotten such a bad rap in the last 10 years that, getting out there and smiling to people and talking to kids, it makes them feel good.
Well, that's, like I said, that's one of the things that I wanted to do with this podcast, because all of our departments are so shorthanded. And I think I told you earlier, I knew the Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office, where I retire, there's 77 spots down. They have 77 vacancies. And the last I heard, the state police were at 150 or 200.
Wow.
Because nobody wants to do it.
No, they don't. So after I retired in 2016 from Newport News, let's see, about 2 or 3 years ago, I started having problems with my guts. Just having a hard time with bowel movements, not feeling good. My primary care at the time, she kind of blew me off a little bit. And then in March of 2024, I had 3 UTIs back to back. And I'll give the people credit at the urgent care center. They said, this is not right. I said, yep. And they said, well, there's a new physician that's opened up across the hallway. So I went over and I saw her. And she said, okay. She referred me to Bayview Digestive Care, Dr. Burkhold. And he reviewed everything. And he said, well, you've never had a colonoscopy. I said, no, sir, I haven't. So they had scheduled me for a colonoscopy on July 2nd. July 1st, I was prepping for it. And as the day went along, I got the feeling worse. Started feeling not so good, bad to worse. And I called up Chesapeake Battalion 3, Chief Kevin Smith. And as I said, Chief, is a medic in the house because I just don't feel good. He said, no, but the engine is. So Engine 10, who's right up the street from me, here in beautiful Bowers Hill portion where 58, 64, 264 all merged together. They came over and checked me out. My blood pressure was 80/50. My pulse rate was 150, and I was in septic shock. So they immediately called the medic, took me to Chesapeake Regional Healthcare, and started running tests on me to figure out what was going on. And that night, it was a lot of blood work being drawn. I felt like a pincushion. Lots of fluids being hung. Had a CAT scan done. And I woke up on July 2nd in the emergency department with my surgeon, Dr. Burkhold, Dr. Valiant 10 with Virginia Oncology, and a couple other doctors. And they told me that I had stage 4 colon cancer. And there was a tumor in my colon, and there was also nodules on my liver. So they all left the room. First doctor came in, and I talked to him, and I said, "Can I fight this?" And he looked at me and said, "Yeah, you're 200 pounds. You're in good health. You can fight this." I said, "All right." Second doctor came, and I asked him the same question. And I will never forget his response because he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, "You need to go home and die." That was a gut punch, take out my knees, give me a left and a right hook at the same time.
Yeah, I've ran into a couple of those doctors. Not all of them have a very good bedside manner.
No, sir.
I don't know where the hell they get those guys.
And then Dr. Tan came in and I asked him the same question. He said, "I'll give you two options. Option number one is go home and die, or option number two is to fight." I said, "I'm a firefighter. All I know how to do is fight." So that began the fight. I spent the first 28 days in Chesapeake getting everything stabilized, getting on chemotherapy, and then I would come out and I'd have some good days, some not so good days. And between July and December, I probably spent or March, I probably spent close to 5 months in the hospital, including my birthday in February. I'll give Chesapeake Fire Marshal's office credit because they came in and they sent me a video, and I always cherish the video of everybody from the fire chief, Sam Gilisano, all the way down to guys that trained me, wishing me a happy birthday. So I turned 57 in the hospital in December. We did a CAT scan for an update, and the news was that the first drug had quit working. So in January, I started a second chemotherapy drug because surgery's been out of question. And 2 weeks ago, I had a CAT scan. And then last week, I got the results of that. My numbers look good. I'm feeling good. I put on weight, but the CAT scan showed the tumor in my colon has increased by 1 centimeter to 13. I've got another nodule on my liver. And I got a nodule on my lung now.
So, Harold, go back to your chemo. How many? I know you said you've been through 3 different types of chemo.
I start my third one next week.
And how many treatments? How many treatments have you been?
Oh, I can't even count because initially the first 6 treatments, I would go in to the clinic. I'd get a 4-hour infusion. And then I'd come home on a Monday or Tuesday, whenever the treatment was, and I'd bring home chemo on a pump. And I'll spend the next 3 days just laying around the house here, letting the chemo work through my system. And chemotherapy is good, but you've got to realize that you're putting poison into your system.
Yeah.
And it doesn't discriminate. It kills the bad and the good cells. So at one point, I dropped from 200 pounds down to 120. And right now, I'm about 140 and maintaining. So next week, we start a new round of chemo and also some chemo pills. So,
I tell people, because, I've had my own cancer battle, and I was 239 when I went in for surgery. And right now I'm 175. And I tell people, if you want to lose weight, it's the way to do it. But I wouldn't recommend it.
No, I don't recommend it at all. The problem with the chemo for me is I developed neuropathy in my hands and my feet. And neuropathy is a tingling sensation. And even though it's hot outside today and it's 72 here in the house, because my feet stay cold, I've got a little space heater in front of my lazy boy and a light blanket just to keep my feet warm. So I stay comfortable.
So tell me about the process of having it job connected or service connected or whatever that term is that they use.
The Commonwealth of Virginia has developed what they call the Virginia Firefighter Cancer Presumptive Act. And a dear friend of mine, Adrian Manning, who is a retired firefighter paramedic from Newport News, and we ran a few thousand calls together over our career. Adrian had developed colon cancer, and at the time, there was a time limit of 6 years after separation, and it was up to the employee to state, hey, I've been exposed, and this is when I was exposed, and it wasn't right. So Adrian got up with retired Senator John Cosgrove of the Virginia Senate, and they expanded it out to 10 years separation and increased it to 20 cancers. So if you develop cancer and it's one of the 20, it's automatically presumed to be part of the exposure to the job.
Which that's good because that allows guys like you to worry about your health.
Yes.
I know when my dad died in 2002, and when my mom was going through the heart lung stuff, she had to go to an attorney because the bottom line is the patient should have to worry about the patient because we know the city is not, they don't want to pay that money. They don't want to pay that money. So that's why you need to use an attorney because those guys know everything. And it's my understanding that every year they're getting broader and broader with the time that you have to file and the type of cancer.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I was also reached out to the Virginia Firefighter Cancer Support Network, and the president there, who's retired chief of Spotsylvania County, he said, here's an attorney you need to talk to, Mr. Goodwin of Reed Goodwin. And I reached out to them. They're based out of Richmond, and they do employee relations law. I explained the situation to him. Mr. Goodwin agreed to take me on. He said, I'll put 2 stipulations on you. Number 1, you let me handle all the legal stuff. And number 2, all you have to worry about is getting better. Fair enough. At the time, there was an assistant city attorney in Newport News, and she fought anything with public safety, fire or police. It didn't matter what it was. She would fight us tooth and nail. And she was fighting me over my claim for workman's comp. And she left in March. They brought in another assistant city attorney. And Mr. Goodwin asked him one question only. He said, prove to us Harold wasn't exposed. And they said, we can't. So then workman's comp approved my case. I now have a workman's comp disability claim for everything cancer related. But the way I developed my cancer was when I joined the volunteer fire company in 1985. Back then, we didn't know that all these synthetic materials in houses had carcinogenics in them. Our gear had carcinogenic material. And we would take our turnout gear, also called bunker gear, because you slept with it at night next to your bed. And we would go into the living spaces with it. And the dirtier the gear, the more of a real fireman that you were. You would have 1 air tank, 4 air tanks on a truck, and everybody shared the same mask, the same tank. Only thing you do is when you got back to the firehouse, you clean the mask, make sure that you had a fresh air bottle, and go again. So you really didn't know who was wearing your mask. You prayed that they would clean it. That's why you always clean it at the beginning of the shift.
Yeah, and I told you earlier, my dad went into the fire department in 1963, and I'll remember one of our conversations where he said that back then he was lucky if there was one SCBA on the apparatus, and most guys, and again, this is 1963, most guys wouldn't wear that stuff because you get called all kinds of names because you weren't a real man if you wore that.
Yeah.
But that's another, I don't know what the term is, but that's another barrier that the first responders face is, it's just, now you're not a man if you do this or you do that. It's not as bad as it used to be.
No, it's not.
It is getting better.
Yeah. I mean, we've come so far a long ways in such a short time because the United States Fire Administration started tracking firefighters who develop cancer and the different types of cancers. And colon cancer is one of the top 5 cancers that you're going to get. So overall, we've gone from one set of gear to now departments are issuing out 2 sets of turnout gear. Before you leave the fire scene, they do what they call a gross decontamination, where they hose you down, get as much of this fire-related material off of your gear. They hand you wipes, and through all the research, they've determined that the hands, the face, and the neck are the most exposed portions of your skin.
And that's also the parts of your body that you use the most, because, you're
Yeah.
always rubbing and scratching and all that.
So now you have to wipe down those areas with wipes, and they're disposable before you leave the scene. You go back to station and get your fresh gear out, throw the old gear in the washing machine. And these are industrial strength washers and dryers designed for the fire department. So you always have a second set of gear cleaned, ready to go. And also at the time, we didn't realize that the material in the gear was carcinogenic in nature. So you get in there and you get to sweat and your pores would open up. Then all that material was being absorbed through your skin into your body, and it can't escape.
So you're in a burning building that the smoke has got God knows what in it. Your gear has got carcinogens in it. So you're basically in a poison environment.
Yes.
Man.
And that's the downside of it. But it's just, I hate to say it so cliche-ish, but it's part of the job. But again, we've come a long ways in that now they're making the material without this stuff in it. They're finding alternative ways to do it. And it's been a godsend.
Well, and I think they're also, because I know in my years with the sheriff's office, you would always know when the fire department was doing a hiring, because we would always lose 2 or 3 deputies from the sheriff's office to the fire department.
Yeah.
And I would tell every one of those guys, wear your damn gear. Anything that they give you that's going to protect you, use it. And I think now, these guys coming up now, they're a lot smarter. They got the technology and the research, the stuff that they didn't have when you first started fighting fires. And certainly when my dad started fighting fires back in the 60s. So that's the big thing. But I want to ask you one thing. I want to think about the things that you saw and you did as a firefighter medic. And, I tell people all the time that guys like us, first responders, whether you're a firefighter or a cop or a medic or working in a jail, we see things that the regular 9-to-5 working stiffs don't see. And that's a huge attraction. I know it was for me.
Yes.
Would you do it all again?
In a heartbeat.
I knew you'd say that. I knew there's something about being a first responder. I got into it. Well, like you, my dad was a firefighter. I had a couple uncles that were firefighters. One of the big points of pride for me, 2 generations, my family has given almost 100 years.
Wow.
Between my dad and my uncles. I've got other family members that have been first responders. Every one of us are retired now. None of us are working. But it was always a brotherhood.
Yes.
That's not the case anymore, I don't think. But, those sirens and those lights and that adrenaline rush that you get when the tones drop. I would remember in Suffolk sitting around the station and then those tones go off and your heart rate goes from 45 to 245. And, that's where you get the cardiovascular damage.
Yep.
There's so many things that we do or did as first responders that are so bad for our bodies that we know now. We didn't know it, even 25, 30 years ago.
No, we didn't.
But yeah, like you, I wouldn't change a minute of it. And I can guarantee you 95% of us would give you the same answer.
Oh, yeah. My brother is federal law, but at the time, He was a Newport News police officer. We got hired about the same time. And then Steve would leave and go up into federal law enforcement. And we've always picked on each other. So in 2013, when I joined, I transferred into the fire marshal's office. Steve was there when I graduated the Hampton Roads Regional Criminal Justice Academy, basic law enforcement.
All right, that's close enough to being a cop, right?
Yeah. And he pinned my badge on me that day.
You get all the benefits of being a cop without people yelling at you.
Oh, I got yelled at because I would enforce the fire code.
Oh, there you go.
But I didn't care because my job was to keep people safe.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it just, once you explain something to them, and I'll never forget, I was doing a fire inspection at a school, and the code says that you can't have decorations on the door. And this one teacher, her door was covered. I was in the second floor classroom. And the principal warned me, he said, she's going to give you a hard time about that. I said, okay. So the teacher came out and explained everything to her. She started up, well, my husband's an architect, and he said da, 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 da. I looked at her, I said, man, let me explain something to you.
We all know architects outrule cops, right?
Yeah. I said, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You're teaching 7th and 8th graders. They have a fascination for fire. I'm afraid that somebody's going to light your door on fire. And then from the edge of the driveway to your classroom is 200 feet. My tower ladder cannot reach that high to get to you. And after I explained a couple of the items to her, she reached over, she tore everything off the door, and she said, you wait till I get home tonight.
She just wanted you to stop talking.
And I never had another issue at all with her, and she turned out to be a great ally. But that was the type of stuff. You got to learn how to talk with people.
Well, let's go back. So right now you were telling me earlier you just started a new chemo, right?
Yeah.
What's the next step?
I start a new drug next week because my brother's in Alabama now, and he works down around the Birmingham. He works in Birmingham. We've done some research, and he wants me to come out there and live with them, and I've agreed to it. And so Steve and I both have done a lot of research, and the University of Alabama at Birmingham is rated 70th in the country for cancer survivability and 6th in the country for colon cancer. So he started asking around his office, who's one of the best colon cancer doctors? And this one doctor's name kept coming up, and they contacted me this morning, and they've agreed to review my case and see if there's anything they can help me with. And if they do, then I'm going to be spending a week down in Birmingham with my brother and his wife and my nieces to see them and to start a new treatment line.
Well, that's good. I hope that works out for you. I really do.
And Dr. Tan has already stated, he said, I hate to see you go, but you got to do what's right. You got to have family there with you, because I live on my own.
Yeah.
And it's hard at times. The hardest part for me is the middle of the night when the house is super quiet and it's dark. And then I start thinking about everything I've done. And I think back to a song that Chris Christopherson wrote, Why Me, Lord? And I've asked that question a gazillion times since July. And I don't know if you're religious or not, but I put my faith and my trust in God. And I've asked him several times, please just call me home. And I've had a friend reach out to me and they said, nope, you've got a fight to give. You got a story to tell. And that's why I reached out to you, Brian, because I feel like I do have a story to tell.
Oh, Harold, like I said earlier, I wasn't sure, but I'm glad that we've done this. We lose firefighters probably 2 or 3 times a year. You'll see one on TV that has been lost to cancer, and not old guys like you and I.
No.
So it doesn't take much, Harold and I have both been fighting cancer. And the one thing that I've learned, and I'm pretty sure he'll tell you the same thing, it only takes one speck of whatever it is to cause that cancer. My exposure happened back in the 80s. So, if you're listening, especially you firefighters, get out, get those tests done. It's never it's never too early.
No, it's not.
Especially with cancer, the earlier you catch it, the better your chances are.
And that's where I'm going to give my sister-in-law credit, Christina, because Steve went to see a new primary care down there, and they were asking about family history. And he kind of tap danced around the cancer issue. I think Christina had enough of it. And she looked at the doctor. She said, let me explain something to you. His dad died of cancer. His brother's in an active cancer fight. And the doctor looked at Steve. He said, you're scheduled for a colonoscopy. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And
they're not pleasant, but they're very necessary.
They are necessary. And you got to break down that barrier, get it done. Especially if you're in the fire department, get every test they come along to test for cancers, take it. If you're outside a lot, see your primary care doctor and say, hey, I want a skin test to see if I have cancer or I'm a candidate for it.
And do your research.
Yes.
I know, I think I told you earlier, when my dad was first diagnosed, this man was a firefighter for 30 years, and they didn't do a chest x-ray. So do your research. I know the internet can be a dangerous thing in some people's hands, but if you got a little sense, look up what your doctors are telling you. If you're not comfortable with what they're saying, go get another opinion. I've been extremely fortunate in my fight because I've had good doctors. But yeah, if there's any question.
Yeah. And Dr. T has been awesome. He's really, we're in this together with the fight. I can't ask for a better doctor in this area. A couple of times I've been in hospital. They've all been stemming from urinary tract infections. And he would come in every morning and check on me and make sure I was okay.
So as opposed to the other guy that told you just go home and die.
Yeah.
That idiot.
And I'm not going to mention his name, but I'll never forget him as long as I live.
Yeah.
But
all right, Harold, is there anything you want to emphasize? What's your last words for this podcast?
There's the good side of the fire department. Well, there's good side of being a first responder, and there's a not so good side. And like you asked me earlier, would I do it all over again? I didn't hesitate.
Nope.
Everything in life, you got to take the good with the not so good or the bad. And if you're a young person, it's a great career. If you're somebody who's looking for a career change, first responders are great. Law enforcement, being a medic, being a firefighter, I would encourage you to do it because you get to see things and do things that you'll never get to do. And just realize that you're going to have good days and not so good days.
And that seeing things that you don't get to see and doing things that was always my draw to it. I say it all the time that, we do stuff and see stuff that the regular 9-to-5 worker bees don't. That's the very cool part of the job.
Yep.
But it's also the bad part because it does a lot to you physically and emotionally. Mental health is a huge issue with first responders as well as the military. All right, Harold, well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for us, brother. I appreciate you taking time. I'm glad we got to do this.
I am too.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you. We'll talk to you next time. Until then, be safe, watch your six, and take care of each other.
Stay safe, guys.
All right, we're out.
You have been listening to the First Responders Podcast with your host, Brian Miller. Please tune in for future episodes of this podcast. Our podcast is dedicated to the men and women who serve the public as first responders. Thank you.